It looked like the Me Too movement might be losing steam. That is, until Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative journalist Ronan Farrow came out with another bombshell. This time, the focus was on Les Moonves, the CEO and chair of CBS, who yesterday stepped down from the Tiffany Network after several women accused him of sexual misconduct, the latest in a line of showbiz men to fall almost a year into the Me Too movement. Moonves was already the target of a misconduct investigation following a report earlier this summer accusing him of engaging in sexually inappropriate behavior. But Farrow's latest report in The New Yorker that 6 more women had come forward with new disturbing accounts, including unwanted kissing, touching, forcible sex acts, physical violence, put the nail in Moonves' professional coffin. One incident even made it all the way to the police, though charges were not pursued. In some of the cases, the women said rejecting Moonves' advances hurt their careers. Like Harvey Weinstein, Charlie Rose, Matt Lauer, and others, Moonves is out, only with as much as a $100 million severance package, dependent on the results of an ongoing investigation. In their statement, CBS announced that the company and Moonves will donate $20 million to organizations that support gender equality and the Me Too movement. He has denied any wrongdoing, telling the New Yorker, quote, "I can only surmise they're surfacing now for the first time decades later as part of a concerted effort by others to destroy my name, my reputation, and my career." Heard that one before? As for CBS, anchor Norah O'Donnell addressed the scandal head-on this morning.
I really didn't know what I was going to say this morning. I needed to say something, so Gail and I have talked and texted. And I said, Gail, I'm kind of looking back to November when we dealt with accusations against our former co-host. And Gail sort of said, yeah, but, I didn't think we'd still be the story in September. Right. And 10 months later, we're still talking about this.
So with the resignation of Moonves, is the Me Too movement alive and well, or only when Ronan Farrow is reporting? Joining me are Tina Opie, Associate Professor of Management at Babson College. Hi, Tina.
Hi.
Jen Deadrick is author of She the People, an illustrated history of women's citizenship. Hi to you, Jen. And Jennifer Braceras, conservative columnist whose work appears in the Wall Street Journal and the National Review. Good to see you, too.
Good to see you.
Jen, let me start with you. Last December, CBS established this commission. I can't believe I'm laughing. Commission on eliminating sexual harassment in the workplace. 10 months later, they eliminate him as well. Yeah. So is this a sign of progress, or, as I said before, is it just a recognition that if Ronan Farrow calls, you better not pick up the phone?
Well, I think it's a recognition. I mean, women are starting to actually talk to each other now and are being able to back each other up. I think I keep connecting this in my mind to Jeffrey Owens and him working at Trader Joe's and not having money because he's an actor. And the reality is that actors have unstable income streams, and they can't speak out against the head of a network, and so they haven't had that kind of ability to really get together and say this is a. But I also think there's clearly just so much that's gone on at that organization at CBS that they are so dependent on him. They didn't. That there wasn't anyone complaining about it seems crazy to me.
So is this the big boys? We haven't gotten many big boys lately. Moonves, there's been I think, a bit of a hiatus. But you seem to be saying, Jen seems to be saying, one layer down, women are talking, things are happening. Are they?
I hope so. And I hope that it's not just one layer down. I hope it's throughout the hierarchy in organizations. Because there are women who work one layer down, but there are also women in factories, in manufacturing sites, et cetera, who may not yet be speaking to each other because they are still dealing with the power dynamics that might prevent them from speaking.
I hate to be the negative one here, but I mean, almost every direction I look, I see bad news on this front. And maybe this is not a perfect parallel, but I think of the Pope and Cardinal O'Malley now having credible allegations that they chose to ignore the complaints of intermediaries about assaults, if not worse, on young boys and girls. I mean, that's a variation on a theme, and they appear to be going nowhere.
Right. I mean, I do think that women now are empowered to speak out because the culture has changed. And I do think what you'll find both with the Catholic Church and in Hollywood and entertainment and other industries is that it's generational. And hopefully it's generational because there are a whole group of men that came up in an era where it was okay to behave this way and where there wouldn't be repercussions. And now I think, for example, with the Catholic Church, there are very few recent allegations of abuse with the younger priests. It just doesn't happen as much anymore because the church has been much more proactive in screening for potential predators, and I think the same is going to be true in the private sector and in other aspects of society.
You're nodding. You buy this? That there is a generational
No,
divide, that essentially as soon as people my age die, we're going to be...
Yeah, we'll all be fine. No, I think when you talk about Ronan Farrow...
It'll be much less prevalent.
It'll be less prevalent.
Be gone.
And when you're talking about Ronan Farrow is someone who has a father who was famous and powerful. We're not sure which one, and but either one of them was famous and powerful, and he is in a position where he can come forward and talk about this stuff, and also does, which is not something an older man would have done. I think back in the day, he feels like this is something worth researching and looking into, and he's willing to give cover to the women who don't have that kind of power.
Yeah, but even if it turns out we're celebrating this, I mean, if it seems to me, I don't know this for a fact, but if there hadn't been a second report by Farrow about Moonves, which came out coincidentally yesterday when the board said we've had enough, he'd probably still be there. He still may end up with $80 million severance on top of the $69 million he made last year. That's a hell of a departure for a guy who is apparently, despite his denials, a serial sexual abuser. And, you know, speaking of the generational, you know, I'm not a huge fan of Bill Maher, I should say. Bill Maher did a little thing the other night talking about Al Franken. Here's part of what Maher had to say.
We need someone who can shred Trump like a stand-up takes down a heckler, because Trump is a heckler. And to fight him, we need a comedian. I think it would be a great idea if Al Franken got back in the game.
And he went on to say, the significant thing is we can have Me Too and Al Franken. They are not mutually exclusive. Are they mutually exclusive?
If Al Franken did what he was accused of, let's just say there better be better representatives that we can put forth than Al Franken.
And we have
I'm sorry.
We had Kamala Harris, we had
comedians.
Cory Booker, we had all these people. For him to say that was like as if none of those people who just did all of that in the committee did anything.
A lot of people in that audience applauding when Bill Maher, what he said about Al Franken.
They're there to see Bill Maher. They're big fans of Bill Maher.
Because it's comedy.
Yeah,
and that's what he's there to do, is to tell a joke. And, you know, that's the problem with the Me Too movement. And, you know,
what is?
Is that there's no sort of distinction between jokes and forcible rape. And everything is lumped into the same, everything is sexual misconduct.
So would you say when Al Franken had his hand over that woman's breast, which I guess he meant as a joke, was that, did we misperceive that?
Well,
and did his female colleagues in the Senate misperceive it?
First of all, it's unclear to me from the picture. If he was actually touching her, then no, it was not misperceived and he deserved to go. If he was just going like this and making a joke over a picture, then I stand with Al Franken.
But that's not the only thing that Al Franken was accused of. That's not the only thing he was accused of. And I'm sure that, and they're not as bad as Weinstein, they're not as bad as Moonves, but he stepped down and he knew, I mean, one of the things was the Democrats knew we had to clean house a little bit. And he fell on his sword maybe a little bit, even knowing what he did wasn't as bad as that. But if he did do the things that he was accused of, he needed to be like...
Do you remember when you were sitting... I'm sorry, what?
I was a defender of Al Franken. I felt that if I were advising Al Franken, I would have told him, you take it to the people, and that's what the ballot box is for.
It would have been a distraction, though.
Well, no, let them decide.
I love Al Franken, and I thought he was a great senator, and
sort of like
he's a great
people
comedian.
decided on Donald Trump, by the way, who has as many credible accusations
or
as
have
does
it
Les
decided in a
Moonves.
court of law.
You know, the one other thing, you were sitting in that chair several months after the Harvey Weinstein thing, and I said something incredibly stupid. Like, well, do these guys all get a life sentence no matter how serious or unserious it is? You leaned forward like this and you said, Jim, it's been 3 months.
Right.
Okay, now it's been 8 or 9 months. Mario Batali, the food guy, says, I'm ready to come back. Louis C.K. shows up at some comedy club unannounced and does his 15 minutes. I mean, it's fairly clear to me they don't get it. Is that...
They totally don't get it.
But isn't that because we don't get it? I mean, it's a Pogo-esque thing to me. Maybe the enemy is us.
But if you listen to the people who were in the audience at the Louis C.K. thing, the men applauded him. The women were like, why is this guy out here?
Yeah,
and so, and the owner of the club...
public repentance.
No.
I'm sorry.
And the owner of that
what does public repentance mean?
Can you
the owner of the club
forward?
said it was great until he said it wasn't great because his business was suffering.
I'm not an attorney, so they may be receiving legal advice not to do this. But in my opinion, public repentance looks something like you admit what you've done, and you say, I'm going to be doing stand-up shows, but the money is going towards the Me Too movement. I'm going to be hiring
Why are
women.
they even entitled to do stand-up shows? Why are they entitled to go back to the same career?
They can work at
I don't
Trader
think that they
Joe's.
should be, but if they're going to be doing that, I think that the income that they're earning should be going. I think they should do repentance for that. And she says she totally disagrees. I'd love to hear why.
Why do you totally disagree?
Well, why should they have to pay off some special interest groups? I mean, some
survivors?
Well, it depends on the group.
Yeah, when are survivors special interests?
Well, no, it depends on the group. I mean, there are some feminist groups that are...
No, I'm talking about survivors.
If
survivors
Louis
of who
C.K.
he
masturbated in front of...
Which he allegedly did.
And he did it, and he admitted he did it. And if he worked at a Trader Joe's like Jeffrey Owens did, and he'd masturbated in front of people he managed,
yes,
he would be fired and would not be able to come back.
So. I'm not saying he should come back. My problem is when organizations like CBS try to say, instead of dealing with the problem within their ranks, they say, you know what, we're going to make a $5 million payment
that $20 million
to a feminist organization.
Give
me a break.
So,
but you can do both.
Can we talk about a non-public reckoning?
Right.
Washington Post book critic tweeted yesterday a Trump quote from the Woodward book, which is coming out yesterday. Here's what Trump allegedly had to say, talking about this kind of issue. You got to deny, and push back on these women. He said, if you admit to anything and any culpability, then you're dead. My take, I thought a lot about this a lot today in light of the Moonves thing. The November elections will be critical in the Me Too movement.
Absolutely.
If it turns out the Republicans win, it seems to me, then we move on the same course we are vis-a-vis the Trumps. If the Democrats take over, I'm looking at you in this case, the reality is these issues and these women may be called to testify about the President of the United States, which changes the dynamic, doesn't it?
It certainly changes what we hear about every night, and it changes the dynamic of what happens in the legislature, but I don't know if it changes. I mean, Trump's supporters still support him no matter how many
Yes,
people
and they voted for him, and they knew about it.
Right.
See, my sense is that none of this ever really reaches the plateau that it needs to if Donald Trump never has a public reckoning.
No, absolutely.
Is that not?
No, absolutely. That's what all of this is about. It's all about we're having to go after these other guys because the top guy who won despite all of this is getting off scot-free for now.
Yeah,
and I think that's where so much of this anger, I mean, we have all these books coming out about female anger. We've got, like Rebecca Tracer's writing her book about female anger.
Can I just say this? It shouldn't just be a Democratic issue. This should be an issue. Listen to what the quote said that Trump said. Deny, deny, deny. Because if you admit culpability, you're dead. What do we teach our children? What do we teach our students? If you did this, my God, when do you fess up? I'm not a politician, clearly, because none of them would do that. So I think it's a sad state when we say that if Democrats win, it's an issue. If Republicans win, it's not. I would hope that we would all come together and address this so that the Me Too movement does not have to be.
I was just saying with respect to Trump, it would be an issue with the Democrats.
Tina, goodbye.
Thank you.
Nice to see you. Jen, you as
Thanks,
well.
Jim.
Jennifer, good to see you. See you soon. Thanks so much, all three of you.